Chaya, Nezu, good evening. Masicho, and thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome everyone. We are honored to have Cleatly Tene, Elder Darlene McIntosh join us this evening for our land acknowledgement and prayer.
Howdy. How's everybody tonight on this beautiful sunny evening? Finally, we have some sun and the air feels good, a little bit cool outside, but it was such a nice day today. So it is after supper hour here, and I'm sure that you've all had full days and probably a little bit tired after your day. So the first thing that I would like you to do is, if you, just for this moment in time, if you can close your eyes, just close your eyes just for this moment in time. And I want you to take some nice deep cleansing breath throughout your whole body. Nice deep cleansing breath. And as you're breathing into your body, I want you to let go of the burdens that you're carrying, the stresses you're carrying, the fears, the anxiety. Just for this moment of time, just let them slide off your shoulders, down your arms, down your fingertips, and gently drop onto Mother Earth. And there, Mother Earth takes those energies and she transmutes them into a positive energy for you. And she gives them back to you so that you're able to fill your vessel up with positive energy. And this we are grateful for. We can always depend on Mother Earth to support us unconditionally, whatever journeys that we're traveling on. And we know that the environment is there for us, the trees, the animals, the wind, the sun. It's all there for us to absorb and take it in. So just imagine yourself outside on this beautiful day. You feel your feet on Mother Earth. And you take that nice deep breath all the way down into your feet. And you feel your feet sink into the deep, rich soil of Mother Earth. There you can smell the richness of her soil. You can feel it between your toes. And there she grounds you into today, into this very moment, to be present to what will be taking place in the next hour. And this we are grateful for. We ask the Creator, the grandfathers and the grandmothers, and all of our ancestors, no matter where they're from, to come be with us tonight. Thank you for this beautiful spring evening, creating a sacred space for what will be taking place in the next hour. And we thank you for all the participation. Thank you for all the knowledge and wisdom that will be shared. As the winds bring a change of weather, they also bring a change in how to do best practices focusing on the revitalization of Indigenous language. We are honored that Marjie Crop Eared Wolf, Eli Hertl, and Yahlnaaw come to be with us tonight, as they come to share their knowledge, as they spread cultural awareness through their own journeys. Our sacred obligation is to give Indigenous voices on reconciliation for our people. Art addresses our inner being, speaking truth through our traditional art. Drumming, connecting with the beat of our mother's heart. Singing and dancing, connecting with the spirit of the land. We thank Creator for guiding us on the good red road of instituting plans that will work on making us whole in all aspects of who we are. As the sun is high in the sky, warming us in the coolness of the northern energy, it touches our spirit, asking us to come into the wisdom of our hearts. We thank Mother Earth for allowing us to walk softly on her, leaving no footprints. May all those present go home, knowing what you will receive today will benefit all. Creator, we ask that you keep our people safe tonight, and may tomorrow be a good day. Creator, hear our prayers. Creator, hear our prayers. As we open this event tonight on Káínai Tené's traditional territories, we, the Káínai Tené Nation, have been on our traditional lands over 9,000 years, as supported by lithic evidence. The change that have taken place over thousands of years supports the enduring strength, courage, and fortitude of our peoples. Our governors through the Batlas brought balance and harmony with our brothers and sisters of other First Nations people. Káínai Tené's clans are Fra, Lasilu, Grausutsu, Beaver, Sa, and Bear Sus. Through this system, we know who our family connections are. Through our oral history, the use of legends told of our travels, our hunting and fishing territories, our trading practices with all peoples. May we remember and hold steadfast in what Creator's blessed us with, and that is our traditional territories. Our ancestors have always welcomed people to our territories. On behalf of Káínai Tené's elders, our youth, community members, and chief and council, it is absolutely our honor to welcome each and every one of you to our traditional territories. All my relations must see. Thank you.
Masicho, thank you so much for that, Darlene. My name is Crystal Behn. I am the Indigenous Programmer at Two Rivers Gallery. I am Dene and Carrier from Northern BC. My maternal roots are in Fort Nelson. My paternal roots are in Fort St. James. I am the recent recipient of the Fulmer Award for First Nations Art awarded by the BC Achievement Foundation. Learning traditional beadwork and moccasin making was my way of keeping culture alive. Itsia da dena da nika da goni. Although I never learned my language, it was very important to me to learn this sentence. I learned this after asking a young man in a small Native community from the Northwest Territories. It means, "How are you today, Grandpa?" The first time I walked into my grandparents' place, when I said this to my grandfather, his eyes lit up. His response was always "Nezu," which means really good. I've always had a natural curiosity when listening to my elders speak our language. Hearing them speak with such fluency is incredible, especially when the younger generation was forbidden to speak their language. When considering all the factors, such as colonization and residential schools that ultimately led to cultural genocide, it is so important to take space and have these discussions. Two Rivers Gallery is honored to have an amazing panel of speakers share their journey with us. This evening's panel will highlight the work that is being done in the field of Indigenous language revitalization. I'd like to briefly introduce tonight's three speakers who are learning their native tongues and graciously sharing their knowledge and experiences with us. Marjie Crop Eared Wolf is a multidisciplinary artist from our current exhibition, The Politics of Sound. She will discuss how she shares her journey through art. Yahlnaaw is a Skidegate woman and Two Rivers' previous Indigenous programmer. We'll talk about learning her language and how she is spreading cultural awareness. We also have Eli Hertl, a Cree, British, and German filmmaker and visual artist and curator will speak about how he turned his curiosity about his culture that he was separated from into a series called Voices on the Rise. Marjie, would you like to go first?
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself. Yeah, sure. Okay, nesto anagog panugaki. I just want to thank Darlene for that opening prayer. Thank you for that. It helps really center myself. It's been a long day, lots of Zooms today. Yeah. So I want to share my screen. I put together a little PowerPoint just for those who may be joining us who weren't able to see the show or haven't seen the show. Let me just scroll to the top. Okay. So this is my work that's currently at the Two Rivers Gallery. It's at the Boasin and Secwépemc are the title of it. This is the first time that I've combined both sides of my background. So my mother is a blood tribe member, and that's where I currently reside, on the blood tribe in Alberta. And my late father, Jesse Seymour, is a member of the Secwépemc speaking people, the Kamloops Indian Band in British Columbia. And I had visited this work before. For me, it's an ongoing piece that is always evolving every time I visit it. And this latest visit, I've brought in the Secwépemc side of my background. So what I started off with was trying to figure out how to visually portray learning the language. And I thought about when I actually learned English, it was through reading and writing and spelling lists that I got at school. And they would always mark your test wrong in red ink if you got the word incorrect. And I was also thinking about the journey that my parents had gone through their education and how they weren't allowed to speak their traditional languages, even though both of them, that was their first language. And so taking that idea of those traditional words and spelling them in that red ink onto these giant white pieces of paper and filling the space. And it wasn't in any regimented order. It wasn't to make an image or anything like that. It was just to fill the space with the language. So in the first, I'm starting from the outside working in, and then from the other, from the inside working out. And they'd start to create and make their own images, and people related to them a lot as almost organic forms, or seeing them as maps. But what I really enjoyed is the fact of it draws you in to get closer to the piece. And once you're closer, you can see that they're made up of these really intricate, tiny written text. And so while I was creating this piece, I was thinking it needed another component to it because it didn't feel complete to me. I felt that it was missing the part where it's the traditional way that we learn languages orally. We didn't read and write it because that's not how my parents learned it. It was through listening and being around other fluent speakers. But I live in a contemporary text, and living in a family, in a household that has two different Indigenous speakers, I had to think of ways that I could use this contemporary lifestyle to my benefit and use technology to help me in learning the language orally. So I had these tapes made, and they were of speaking one language and the other, and then listening to the words that are being said on the tape and then saying it out loud to the camera. Now, in the practice of doing this, I'm not actually telling you or translating the words or the phrases that I'm saying. Because to me, I'm not teaching, I'm learning. And so I think that's really important to me, because I don't want to make mistakes. That's another thing that I'm trying to come to terms with in this process of learning the language. And I've come to a place where I've started to make peace with that part of learning, about accepting the fact that it's okay to make mistakes. I had gone to a language symposium, and they had a keynote speaker there, and he himself wasn't fluent, but he took it upon himself to learn the language. And when he spoke, he shared this concept of not wanting to make mistakes. And I related to that. And when he spoke about it, he had pointed out the fact that in one of the lessons that he had with his elder, he had made a mistake and that she had laughed, but it wasn't to be mean. It was because it reminded her of how children learn the language and they make a mistake and they say something crazy that they didn't mean to say. And so in that way, he got the opportunity to take that negative and turn it into a positive, which I find is very relevant to Native people's worldview, right? And we take it as an opportunity to learn 2 words instead of 1. So you're actually benefiting and learning from your mistakes. And not only that, but you've created a space or a time for your elder and yourself to laugh and share a laugh together. And in our worldview, in our culture, laughter is medicine, right? So this is a much larger piece on the screen of the show that I had in Escar at the gallery in Calgary. And this is the interior. I had all the text kind of on one side, and then as it started to go out into the open space, it became more fragmented. There's the video piece at one end, and then there was a video piece out on the street as well. And on the inside, you could hear the audio of me speaking out into the lobby area. So this is just another closer example of what the text looks like. Then I'll just play this short video to understand what it feels like to move your eye through the piece. This is a short video of the very first piece that I did. I haven't filled that page entirely. I've shown this work about 4 times. Each time it's evolved, and each time this piece has been part of the show. When I sent this to Two Rivers, the curator had mentioned that they noticed that there was a stain toward the bottom. It was a discoloration, and if I was aware of that, it was like a smudge. I told him, yeah, I was aware of it, and that was my mistake. What had happened was this work has been worked on over a stretch of time. And so in that time, there's been quite a lot of loss in our community and loss of fluent speakers. And one of our elders had recently passed while I was working on it, and I was thinking of her and all that knowledge and all that wisdom that she had, and that opportunity that was now taken, and also just missing her. I was overcome with emotion, and before I knew it, I started to cry. And I tried to step back before and it fell on the page, and I was like, oh no, this is ruined. And I almost threw that whole piece out, but I decided that I wouldn't. That added another layer to the piece itself. So this is just another still of my piece and the gallery and what it looks like. So the one on the further left would be the Blackfoot, and then the one on the right would be the Shuswap, and then the one in the center is a combination of both together. So with that, I will end my share screen, and I will hand it back over to Crystal.
Thank you for that, Margie. Yahlnaaw.
Ja, Heilige las, Yahlnaaw hana di kia waga, swaga na heilige stove leaching. Na hein stove will now di gun, Saint needs knee stove will now di gun, where in the pungin, goo will now di gun. Just one hana di alpa kia waga. Bruce hana di plangwa kia waga. Get as bootsie hana di delpanga kia waga. Lucas Hanadi Kuga Kiapaga. Pepi Ad Buala Hanadi Ha Kiapaga. Algiwat Hananawa Kiapagan. Hello, wonderful people. My name is Yahlnaaw, and I am from Skidegate Haida. I spent a lot of my upbringing on the Hain Tsimshan territory, also known as Prince Rupert. And I'm currently residing here on the beautiful territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, in which I am grateful each and every day to wake up once again near the ocean. My mother's name is Jasquan. My father's name is Bruce. My younger sister's name is Badeth Boutlier. My fiance's name is Lucas. My two sweet pups, their names are Buella and Peppy. And my nanai's name is Augiwat. I am coming to you, and I think many different roles. As mentioned, I was the previous Indigenous Programmer at Two Rivers Gallery. I am now the Indigenous Rights and Anti-Racism Officer for the Equity and Human Rights Office at UVic. And I am also the co-owner and co-founder at Taajuu Consulting. I am coming to you from the hardest week and a half of my life. And you'll notice that in my introduction, I ended introducing my family with Kiapaga. This indicates that they are still physically with us. But when I introduced my nanai, I ended with Kiapagan. Adding gun to the end indicates that they are no longer physically with us. On the morning of March 13th, I heard my sister's shaky voice on the phone, and I knew that this was the call I had been dreading. My language mentor, my best friend, and the most important person in my life had died. I had just spoken with her the night before, and she sounded so strong, so resilient, so comedic, and ended the conversation as per usual with, I love you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. My younger sister, she had an image, a vision in her head shortly after learning of Nanai's passing. All we learned on the initial call was that the nurses in the lodge found her on the floor in her bedroom. We didn't know how she passed, but Robin said she had this vision that she went quickly. And in her words, that she was gone before she hit the floor. And that provided us with comfort, of course. And shortly after, the coroner called and said, in Robin's exact words, she was gone before she hit the floor. Her biggest fear was dying in a hospital bed. That was her biggest fear. She watched two of her children die, one of them slowly in a hospital bed, and that's not what she wanted. So knowing that she was gone quickly was very comforting. And knowing that she let my sister know that, to give us that comfort as soon as we found out, was very helpful. And then Lucas, my incredible partner, we drove north to be with family and get everything in order, as I found out that I was the executor of her estate, of her will. And Lucas was incredible. He packed my stuff, he packed our dog stuff, he packed the car, he got us in the car, he booked the ferry, he booked the hotel, he drove us the full 12 hours there, he drove us the full 12 hours back. And I'm grateful each and every day to have an incredible partner like Lucas. The morning after, or the first morning that we arrived home in my parents' home, I woke up, and I was in that stage of when you're awake, but you're not quite awake yet. And it feels like dreams are still present, but a little bit at a distance, but you feel some kind of connection. And as I was waking up, I had a moving image of Káínai coming out of the washroom and going into her hallway. And she looked up and she saw everyone there. She saw her children that had died. She saw her brother who had died in 2020. She saw her mom, her dad, her Káínai, her Chinai. And Káínai had suffered a lot of trauma and medical mishaps throughout her life. Through abuse in the day school system, she couldn't use her hands and her wrist. She couldn't walk without the help of a wheelchair or a walker. And she was legally blind and deaf in one ear from work at Acknowledgement when she was younger. But she saw everyone and she stood up strong. She let go of her walker. And she could see just fine. And she looked around and she saw everyone. And then her youngest, Cheryl Isa, who died when she was just a baby, she was all grown up, and she walked up to Káínai and just looked at her. And then they took her quickly. When my aunt, Bunny, as we called her, because she loved animals and she loved bunnies, when she was dying of breast cancer, she was in the hospital, and she started to speak to people in the hospital room who everyone else could not see. And she was speaking Haida to them. She couldn't previously speak Haida fluently, but she was speaking fluently. She was looking all over the room as if it was completely packed, looking up and down the walls, along the floor, as if people were sitting around her. Then she continued talking to them. Then she looked up at my mom, her sister, her little sister, and she said, "They're going to take me now. and then she died. Just yesterday, I was creating additional backups of my language recordings of Káínai and our ancestors and my uncles and my aunties, because although they were backed up in many places, I had this feeling to back them up in a few more places, just in case, because those recordings are so precious, because those are voices that I only get to hear in my head, if not recorded. And I came across one from years ago, named, which I just named whenever I made the recording, When Ancestors Come to Get You. And it was a recording that I took of my Káínai and my uncle Roy, my Káínai's older brother, who left us in May 2020. And they said that when you are dying, your ancestors come to get you. If you say yes, they will take you. And if you say no, they will leave you for a while, but they'll be back because they don't determine your fate. The universe does. And then I also noted that within the year or so before your ancestors come, you will have dreams of them coming to visit you and asking you to go with them, for example, in a boat or in a car or on a walk or in a swim. But your ancestors won't just visit you, they'll ask you to do things with them. And if you agree or say yes to do things with them in your dream, you're beginning that process to cross over into the spirit world, to be with your ancestors and go back to the land once again. And if you say, no, I don't want to go with you on the boat, I don't want to go with you swimming, then your ancestors know it's still not time yet. And they're going to come back and try again. Based on what I saw in my vision or my dream that one morning of everyone coming to get Káínai, she knew that her time was coming and she said yes. I also remember throughout the last year her telling me stories of Uncle Roy, her brother, coming to see her in her dreams, and her dad. She loved her dad. And thinking back, she was ready. They took her so quickly that she was gone before her body hit the floor. And when I went to see my Káínai one last time before her cremation last week on Wednesday, she was wearing her favorite clothes and flashy jewelry, and she looked so peaceful and so beautiful. And I started to speak to her in Haida. Walk towards me, my Káínai. Come visit me in my dreams. Thank you for listening and guiding my stories, for teaching me everything that you have, and told her that I loved her. When I speak my language, she is in my voice. And she is the reason that I can speak my language. I'm nowhere near as fluent as I would like to be, but she provided me with everything I needed to continue learning by myself and within my community. Káínai, as mentioned, faced a lot of medical mishaps and abuse. And despite that, she continued to push through. She was turning 92 in July, and she is our youngest matriarch to die. And I believe that is because of the abuse and colonialism and patriarchal values that she was so forced into. Her Káínai lived to be 111. So I often feel like our time was cut short due to the damaged colonialism. has brought into our communities. Thinking about so many days spent on the beaches of Skidegate, telling stories, asking questions, and upholding patience, seeking medical care for hiccups that persisted for almost 72 hours due to diaphragmatic stress from learning such a complicated and physically tiring but incredible language. And let me tell you, it's embarrassing to tell the staff in the emergency room that you're 21 and you can't get rid of your hiccups. When I was originally invited to participate in this panel prior to Nânai's passing, I had this whole list of ideas and points to speak to, coming up with something along those lines. Or advice maybe for second language learners, whatever it may have been, I had a whole bunch of ideas. But with the passing of Nânai, I'm finding most things very tiring and hard to think about. I'm having a lot of difficulties with my memory. I'm usually the one in the family who remembers everything. But right now I am unable to even picture my childhood home or neighborhood. One thing I will never forget is Nânai's laugh and the sound of our language being spoken amidst laughing and joking, that gasping for air between laughs and getting out a few feeble sounding Haida words and continuing on. I'll never forget that. But the best pieces of advice that I think I can put together for you all right now that speak to who I am and where I come from on multiple aspects, coming from being Haida, from being queer, from being a transgender woman, is remember where you come from. Who you are is where you come from. Some of you may not feel you know where you come from. And I'm telling you now that this is your sign. This is your notice. It's time to start looking. This may be traumatic or tiring or taxing, but it is your responsibility to know where you come from. If you only know a few words in your language today, use those words each and every day. With every word you speak, your ancestors are with you. Your voice is their voice. Allow your ancestors into your life by using the language they intended you to learn. Seek avenues such as the Mentor Apprentice program to learn your language. They have incredible tools and community-based resources to guide you through this journey. The Mentor Apprentice program was something Nânai and I did for 4 years. And it was incredibly helpful to have that community base and to find other speakers of our language who were learning, in which we could collaborate and talk in groups and do group sharing and play games and go to the Skidegate Haida immersion program in Skidegate. Find people like that in your community that are learning so you can learn together and not feel so isolated on a lot of these journeys, especially for those who aren't in their Indigenous communities. I'm in Victoria, my community is Skidegate, but I can't find work or whatever it may be in those locations due to strategic governmental aim to ensure opportunities remain low on reserve, so Indigenous youth and other individuals are forced to urban centers away from their community in order to assimilate us and to make us forget or leave behind our traditional ways of knowing and being. It's okay to leave, but you need to know where you're coming from. That nervous feeling you have when you are about to speak your language, that is trauma. That is intergenerational trauma. That goes into epigenetics. That is colonialism, and that is the patriarchy. If you are letting that nervous feeling win when you want to speak your language, you are letting colonialism win. Speak whatever you can, whenever you can. And do not let others anglicize and whitewash your language and words. Settlers forced us to learn English. Force them to get the words right. Do not give in. Watch them stumble, struggle, become red in the face, and tell them to say it again. And lastly, I think, always remember that you are not just one person. You never were, and you never will be. You are the manifestation of genocide, of resilience, of power, reclamation, and identity. In Skidegate Haida, our word for language is pil. Our word for voice is also pil. By learning our language, we learn our voice, our identities, and the voices of our ancestors who allowed our voice to come into existence. Now, we must use our voices to demand change because that is our responsibility. Digidang Gyujis Biodigidalong Pasil Kilnaga. Hawa for listening to my stories and my words today, and I'm grateful to be in this space with you all, this digital space. Hawa.
Thank you, Yahlnaaw. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you for your words. It's just the hormones. I'm having a baby, so it's hard for me to keep everything together, but thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. Eli.
I want to begin by thanking Darlene for the prayer that opened this space in such a beautiful way. I know it really grounded me after a busy day. I want to thank the staff at Two Rivers for inviting me to be a part of this, and also for preparing that in such a thoughtful and generous way. And I want to thank Marjie and Yahlnaaw for just such heartfelt words. I think what I'm thinking about right now, it's something I've thought about a lot the past 5 years, as I've been doing research and making films about language revitalization, the importance of spending time with our old ones, with our elders, with our language speakers, knowledge holders. It's a reminder to me of how far away from Northern Alberta I feel a lot of the time. I'll start by introducing myself as well before I go more down that train of thought. Tanse nita tamatak, Eli Hertl nisi kosan. Hello, relatives. My name is Eli Hertl. I'm joining you also from the Lekwungen territory, so-called Victoria, so-called Vancouver Island. My mother's family is nêhiyaw or Cree from Wabasca, a few hours north of Edmonton, a part of the Bigstone Cree Nation. And my father's family is a mixture of European, British and German. I am an artist, a curator, but primarily the reason I'm here today is as a filmmaker. For the past 5 years, I've been working on a project with some friends for TELUS called Voices on the Rise. And before I show a short clip of myself with an elder from Wabasca, I want to talk a little bit about what brought me to working on this. As Crystal mentioned, it comes from a place of disconnect and needing and wanting to connect with my family and community and language. My mother's a 60 scoop survivor. It was 14 years ago when we met our nêhiyaw family. I remember that trip to Red Deer for a family reunion like it was yesterday. And what I remember the most and what stuck with me the most from that day, which was really overwhelming with emotion and meeting my kokum Florence for the first time, and aunties and uncles and cousins, was when my Uncle Bernie, who was brought up by my Okamau, my great grandmother Isabel, and my kokum Florence were speaking Cree to each other. And there was a fire that was lit up inside of me when I heard that. We didn't know that we were Cree. I didn't know I was Cree until I was 25. So all of this was happening, and I hear this language, and it took me a long time, almost 10 years, to make my way to Wabasca for the first time. I needed to do a lot of growing and healing and letting go of things before I could do that, before I could visit my Uncle Bernie there, before I could meet family and community. And around the same time, I started making films, and we had the opportunity and received some funding from TELUS to make a series in Alberta, 3 half-hour episodes. So before we filmed, I explained to our funders and my fellow producers how important it was for me to travel around Alberta. I did a 2-week road trip before we came with a film crew, so I could meet all of the potential subjects, people I'd been talking to on the phone and through email, face to face, in person, and explain to them why I was doing this, that I was actively trying to reclaim and learn my language, that I feel a deep responsibility to hold and carry those stories of what other people are doing to revitalize or stabilize languages in their families, in their communities. I remember meeting Marjie's cousin Star on that trip, and many, many, many other people who welcomed us into their homes, who welcomed us into their communities. And it also brought me home in a deeper way than had ever happened before. I had the opportunity to attend my first sweat lodge back home, and that was with Elder John Bigstone. And I'm going to show an interview that we filmed a couple of days after I was able to do that. And then after that, I'll talk a little bit about what's happening for me this year to continue my language learning journey. Okay. Oops. John Bigstone is a Wabasca elder who carries vast spiritual and ceremonial knowledge. He invited me to the land where he holds sweat lodge ceremonies to share teachings about the spirit within our languages.
It clears your mind when you breathe in this smudge. English language is inadequate if you're going to describe spirit. Anything of spirit is inadequate. They named it according to their connection to that plant because they spoke to the plants. They had a connection. They had a connection to all of life. They understood their environment.
Whether you think that we have it inside of us, just waiting to come out, this bone memory or blood memory of the language.
Yeah, it's in your DNA. It's programmed in there already. You just got to wake up that programming. That's why you're here. See, is that programming? Your spirit, guys. You got to remember, there's a spiritual aspect to this. You're never alone. You never walk alone. Your ancestors, your Cree ancestors walk with you. They're assigned to you to guide you where you need to be. That's the beauty of this understanding of spirit. It happens in spirit. We are the result of spirit in action. We become material. That's a deeper teaching. But the reality is, every one of us has spirit guides around us.
I was on kind of a lost path before I found my way to my first lodge. And it's interesting to think of these European modalities or academic ways of describing how things are working. And the way that I explain it to people is, I don't know how it's working. I just know it is working for me. And it's not something I'm trying to figure out up here. I just know it's working down here. And I think it has connected my heart and my spirit in ways that weren't happening before.
When I say a prayer in a social gathering, I say it in Cree because it's an insult to my ancestors if I pray in English. It's the very thing that oppressed me as a child. I can't do that. I have to speak and pray in Cree. That's what I do. And I explain, why. Because I'm not praying to the people. I'm praying to the spirits that are guiding me. They don't have to understand what I'm saying. Because as long as the spirit hears, the spirit will come. And they understand my language, the Cree language. Once I identify myself, they say, oh, our grandson is praying. Let's go support him. That's the beauty of our language. What happened to our language came from the time of the residential school, the first time it was introduced. Not only the Cree, but the many tribes down south. When they took away the children, they took the children away from the land, the language, their ancestors, their grandfathers, their grandmothers, their teachers, their parents, their aunts and uncles. That's when the separation happened. They broke that connection. So when they took us away, they severed that connection to all of those things. We were taught a foreign way of thinking. I was programmed as a child. Now I have to deprogram myself, sometimes referred to as decolonization, because they gave us a colonized mentality. And it just did not fit with our paradigm, how we saw our place in creation. At some point, somebody's got to wake up. Somebody's got to say, hey, there's something wrong here. This is the time. That's why we're here, to wake the people up, to wake ourselves up. It's to be the guiding light, you know? There's a different way. So it's about connection. That's what was severed in the time of the residential school. We lost connection to our spirit because we placed the creator outside of us instead of in here. We're trying to mend that rift. That's what you're doing, that rift that was caught. You're the stitch that's bringing those two worldviews to where they start respecting our way, the Cree way. When you have love, when you feel love, when somebody tells you something that your spirit is looking to hear, like welcome home, where do you feel it? Right here. You're connected. You'll always have that sense of belonging because you come home. Yeah? So once you come home, you know where to come next time you're out there wandering. You have connection there. You've made some connections already here. You're no longer disconnected.
I left my conversation with John feeling like I belong in a way that I've never felt before. It was an incredibly powerful experience that made me feel more connected to my spirit.
My apologies if the sound cut out there momentarily. I haven't shown a video in a while through screen share. That's watching that again is making me miss John and miss Wabasca. I was there last summer filming another season of Voices on the Rise. And I'm really excited about what I have planned for this year, to continue my art making, creative endeavors, and also a language immersion grant that I received. So I received 2 grants earlier this year, one from the First Peoples Cultural Council for the Mentor Apprentice program, the Connection Stream. So it's the introductory 100 hours of immersion. I'm going to start off slow with my language mentor, Jackie Ballantyne, who's from Sandy Lake, Saskatchewan, and lives here on the Kwangin territory. And the other project is funded by the Canada Council for the Arts, and it's a visual arts project encompassing audio, video, beadworking, making large glass beads. It's called Patamoan Ochi Pakoni Kishik, or A Dream from the Hole in the Sky. And it's about Cree cosmology and our belief that we enter this physical plane, and when we're done here, we leave through Pakoni Kishik, or the 7 Sisters or the Pleiades. And I'm going to explore stories, Cree understanding of the cosmos, of different constellations, in different ways. So I plan to be back in Wabasca 2 or 3 times this summer. I'm really excited about that. While making these seasons of Voices on the Rise, I've been blessed to spend a lot of time with people doing language revitalization, but I haven't had the time myself to focus on that until now. So this is really exciting for me to embark on a new chapter in my own language learning. So with that, thank you, Kinanaskomatinen.
Thank you so much for that, Eli. I have a few questions. How long have you been learning Cree, Eli?
Off and on, about 4 years. I started to go to nêhiyaw language learning circle at the Victoria Native Friendship Center. But because there was new people always coming to the circle, it always felt like we were starting from scratch. New people would come in and we'd start over and we'd start over. So it was an incredible community to be learning with. And that's where I met Jackie Ballantyne, who I'll be doing the immersion with this year. But I'm really excited about that more focused one-on-one time that we're going to have. So it's been stops and starts, and the pandemic I know has been really challenging for a lot of people who are living away from home or not being able to spend that in-person time together.
Okay. I know there's a lot of different dialects. Was it difficult with all the different dialects?
For me?
Yeah, Eli.
Yeah, there are many different dialects. I think 5 major dialects. And yeah, it's interesting. Jackie and I talk about that a lot, that her dialect is different than what John or my uncle Bernie or my Cookum Florence spoke. But I think we're going to be focusing on foundations, on the basics, which between where Jackie is from and Woodland Cree up north, there's not a lot of difference in the kind of foundational basic words. When things get more advanced, then I do want to be working with somebody from back home, so that the more complex words and phrasing can be accurate.
Okay. All right. What advice do you have for the younger generation that want to learn a language?
Is this just like a general question?
Yeah, you can all answer. I want to hear all your answers.
I am the younger generation, as my mother would say. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me is what I spoke to earlier, is that in order to learn your language in the ways you need to understand who you are and where you're coming from, and that who you are is where you come from. And that with every word you speak, you're revitalizing and you're reviving a language that was forcefully taken away from you. The right of being able to know and learn and think in your language was taken away from you. And unfortunately, now it's our responsibility to restore it back into its rightful places through, of course, various and diverse avenues. We can look into many different ways. We can look into decolonization processes, uncolonization processes, reclamation processes, reconciliation, all of those pieces. And I think it's really important for us all to understand that nothing is a one-size-fits-all approach. The agenda for Indigenous decolonization led by Indigenous peoples is going to be very different It needs to be very different from the agenda of settler decolonization led by settler peoples, and understanding our places and spaces within these deconstructive realms is so critical, and truly building our identities in the ways our ancestors intended us to. And I think at a very baseline, that's something I really want people who are up and coming and who are determined to learn their languages to understand. You're not just learning a language, you're learning a worldview, you're learning a way of life, you're learning a new way of thinking. And my nana told me once that once you start dreaming in your language, that's when you're breaking into that worldview. That's when you're making that paradigm shift. That's when this unconscious, implicit part of your brain, this part that your ancestors are living in and that are waiting to break out of, starts to open up. And you start to see this whole world ahead of you that colonization and English didn't allow you to see before. And once you get to that place, in that space, the difficulty of language learning, although it still is a difficult process, becomes easier. Because for me, I began to see my place in these processes. And I hope that's something that other people slowly are able to begin experiencing.
Thank you. Eli, your advice to the younger generation.
Be persistent. Don't let barriers or distance or whatever particular challenges you face stand in the way. There is a lot of shame attached. I've faced that. What Yahlnaaw was saying about that feeling in your throat, that feeling in your gut before you're about to speak, or after words come out and you know that they don't sound right, to push through that is so critical. And I also am really excited about the art, the visual art, the music, the films that are being created with our languages and making our languages more visible. I was filming at the Edmonton Public Library last year, and Joy Arcan had these incredible brightly colored decals of Cree syllabics within their Indigenous gathering space at the library. And Marjie, I saw your work at the Esker. I was out filming in Calgary at that time and was blown away by that work. Just to be able to see it and kind of get lost in it. I think this is really important. It's really important to make our languages visible and normalized in different spaces.
Thank you. Yes, I can definitely relate to the excitement that I seen when syllabics were put on clothing in the younger generation, and then that brings together young entrepreneurs, and it's just so amazing to see. Marjie, what is your advice to the younger generation?
That's a really tough question after the wonderful answers these two just gave. Oh my goodness. I don't know what more to add to that. I can speak to a couple things that they mentioned that rang true for myself. When you were talking about once you start learning the language, there's a whole worldview that opens for you. And I remember having a discussion with somebody once about this who was also on a similar journey. And they were talking about this concept of like the old language and then like the new language. So because we live in a contemporary text, our language is always evolving. We're finding new words to explain these new things that are coming into our lives and names for them. And so this concept of old language are like words that are not generally used. One of them, there was a group of elders. This person went into that room, asked them, I've been doing this work. on the language. I came across this word. I don't understand it. Is it an old word, or what does it translate to? And what it was forgiveness. Now, in our contemporary text, when we think of forgiveness, it's kind of like, yes, I will forgive, but I won't forget. That's not the mentality of our ways. When you forgive somebody, you're letting go of all that past hurt, right? It's a mentality of like, there's no winner and there's no loser. There's got to be a way for both of us to move together forward in a good way. That whole concept of winner and loser is a colonial idea. That whole idea of like not using forgiveness is, yeah, it opens your mind in ways that, you know, you didn't really consider until you start to learn the language. When I first started this project, I was at the university, and I had just started going back, trying to get my GPA up to get into a master's program in the arts. And that's when my dreams started happening. And that was something that you had also spoken about. When you're able to dream in your language and you wake up and you understand everything they said to you, yeah, it's kind of like, you're on the right path, right? Even though you might start to doubt yourself and be like, you don't feel like you're making any progress. Yeah, those types of things, those messages, they hear you, they help you, they're there to encourage you. So listen to them and be open to it. And don't doubt yourself, you know? You have it in you. There's that, I guess, blood memory. So it's there.
Thank you. Also, another question for you, Marjie. The 3 pieces that are here at Two Rivers Gallery, art looks different to everyone else, but to me, it looks like a map. When you start your projects or each piece, do you have a vision of how it's going to look in the end? Because to me, the ones, they almost look like maps.
Yeah, I've gotten that quite a bit from people who see the pieces. They say that they look like topographical maps, or they have an aerial view, or even just the surface of it looks like it's tangible. You could touch it and feel the roughness of it or whatever. Yeah, no, I don't have a plan. I'm just either working from one side to the other, working from the inside out, or from the outside in. And yeah, it's very tedious. It's a long time, and the fact that it reads as land, I like that. I think it speaks to that whole concept that the land and the language go hand in hand. I was actually able to listen to one of the episodes that Eli had done, and I cannot remember her name, but she had said something in your interview, and that really resonated with me. She spoke about how the land gives us plants that we use for medicine to heal our bodies, and the language gives us medicine to heal our souls. And I thought that was really powerful and something that I thought needed repeating here on this platform. Yeah.
Thank you. Kate, can we open it up for any questions?
We've had lots of lovely comments of gratitude and support. And I think everybody is so smitten with everything that is going on that we actually haven't had any questions, but I have a question if you don't mind. One thing that I've noticed has come up with each of you at some point is the joy and laughter that has been part of your learning journey. And I was wondering if each of you might be able to take a moment to speak about how your language learning and connecting to your culture has opened you up to new possibilities for joy and laughter.
That's a big question, a big but a good question. I think a big part of it speaks to, again, what we've all sort of touched on, that whole opening of a worldview, that shifting in paradigms, whatever it may be. I remember growing up, I would hear Káínai and my Uncle Roy talking in Haida and laughing, and I wanted to know what they were saying. I wanted to know what they thought was so funny. And at the time, I didn't understand why I didn't get to. It almost felt like it was some kind of privilege. And I wasn't old enough yet or something like that. I never understood it, you know, being 5 or 6 or 7, whatever that may be. And now I know it's because of all of these, you know, colonial and oppressive processes, and my Káínai not wanting to teach my mom our language, and then my mom not teaching me because of a lot of the damage and traumas that my Káínai and that my mom and my aunties had gone through. And in Káínai's mind, it was her keeping us safe from the dangers of the world. And I can still see it in my head. You know, her telling me, it's okay, you look white, you're going to be safe. And, you know, thinking about all of those things. And as you grow up and as you learn all of those things, it comes together in kind of this convergence of understanding of why it felt like a privilege that I didn't get just yet, but knowing the truth behind it. Now I get to go into the Skidegate Haida immersion program, and for the most part, I know what's going on. I get to hear people make those jokes. I get to hear people make good fun at each other and engage in those conversations and not feel like it's something beyond me, something that I'm not capable of yet, but knowing that I'm in that learning process, that I'm gathering those tools, and that I can engage in that laughter and understand that humor, and really come to terms with the fact that English is pathetic. English is one of the most pathetic languages in existence. And I think that stems to the fact, and this is where I say things that get controversial and people get upset about it, but I think it stems from the fact that comes from colonialism and the patriarchy, a culture or people in their minds see themselves as lesser or see themselves as intimidated, and then react by anger, in this case, colonial domination and genocide and residential schools and all of those pieces. And of course, English came along with that. English knew it was inferior. English knew it wasn't capable of encapsulating all of the emotions and feelings and descriptors that all of our indigenous languages can, and therefore that fear led to this domination. And now we're in this space where we're decolonizing, uncolonizing, and deconstructing those processes, and knowing that one day, sooner than later, we're all going to be able to sit in those sacred, ancestral, and cultural spaces and understand that humor that is so deep that English can't even portray it. English can't even begin to explain the humor that is happening. Our stories that are seen oftentimes when translated as vulgar or terrible or nonsensical are actually just so embedded in knowledge and humor that is so beyond the reach of colonialism in English. And really being able to engage in that and understand that is a privilege. And it is a beautiful thing that we're all slowly being able to do. So that's how I see that. How for that question, Kate?
Thank you so much. I love that response. Margie, would you like to share?
Sorry, I was just directing my daughter to close the blinds. It's getting dark now. Didn't want to continue with the window open. Joy and laughter, right? Let's see. Yeah, lots of reflection and different things that have come into my life since I've started to start this journey about learning my language. Like I said, I'm not fluent, but like I make the initiative to bring it into my household and share with my family as much as I can. I have a relatively young family, and when I started really getting serious about learning my language, my children were both still in elementary school, and they have traditional Blackfoot names that their grandparents had given them, but around the house I had given them nicknames in their language, and I always referred to them by these names. And then we went to a ceremony, and at the ceremony the elders were asking them, what's your Indian name, your traditional name? And they relayed their nicknames, their baby names at home. And what they translate to my son, I would call him Spoopy, which is turtle, because he was so slow getting ready in the morning. And my daughter, I called her Tsikatsi, which is Blackfoot for grasshopper, because she would never sit still. I was always chasing her and she was hopping from place to place. And so, you know, an eruption of laughter from the elder and them giving their baby names. So those types of things happen, right? And it's heartwarming to know that, you know, even though I'm not fluent, but I'm making those efforts to instill that type of lifestyle into my children, to help plant those seeds that they'll continue on the similar journey that I'm on to learn the language. And yeah, I think that's about all I have on that.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Margie. That just warmed my heart. Eli, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I really miss that language group I was attending at the Friendship Center here because of how much laughter there was all of the time. And I think that's why I'm really looking forward to spending these 100 hours and more than that with Jackie this year, because of how much we laugh together and tease each other, and how much that puts me at ease. It's not like a serious scholarly endeavor that we have been doing. When we spend time together now, we go to the ocean and pray together. And yeah, it's a casual, organic, light and fun. Like, it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of laughter, and I know that's going to be a huge part of not only my mind being able to remember it, but my heart connecting with it and my spirit welcoming it in. It's going to put all the different parts of me at ease. And I don't think I'd be able to continue the learning if laughter wasn't present.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It is crucial in any hard work to pair it with laughter, I think. I don't have any other questions from the audience, so I think I'll send it back to you, Crystal. Thank you for letting me speak.
I think you got muted again, Crystal.
I'm sorry. One question that I would really like to know, this was written down. How can settlers help in the effort to revive Indigenous languages? Marjie, would you like to go first?
I think giving us the space to do those types of things. I mean, I've seen work done in communities where, like, even the stop signs are in the traditional language of that nation's territory. Signage within urban areas, renaming of places, schools, roads, those types of things, those colonial settlements. If our language is more evident in those places, I think would really, really help. Even in the renaming of the cities themselves sometimes. I mean, that would be ideal, right? Yeah. Just working towards that kind of relationship between our communities. I know in the community that is closest to my reserve, the Blood Reserve, is a city of Lethbridge. And I think it was maybe a year or two ago, they had done an announcement that the city was going to change the official greeting of the city to the Blackfoot greeting, which is okay. That's how we greet each other. And so I thought that was a nice step in the right direction. But like I said, that's just the beginning, right? There's so much work that still needs to be done. I think even within the cities themselves, making language classes available to the youth as young as kindergarten even, you know, because that's when they're just like little sponges and they just absorb so much information. Yeah, I think that's all to say about that right now.
Thank you, Marjie. Eli.
A couple things come up for me. The first thing is money, funding. Like a few years ago, there was a pretty big announcement with the First Peoples Cultural Council receiving $50 million for language programming. I think the same year within this country, French receives $2 billion. How does that make any sense to anybody with all of these? And the language is important around this. Like when people say critically endangered, it puts things in a position of deficit, where I think it is a critical situation with many languages in BC, Alberta, across the country. They require funding. I was talking with my friend Emily Hirtle in Edmonton this past summer, and we were talking about how important it is to support younger people in many different ways as communities to do this language work, but as people working full-time jobs, how and other responsibilities in life, how do you then dedicate the amount of hours you need per week, per month to gain fluency. People need to be supported so that they can step away from those 35, 40 hour a week jobs so they can really focus. Imagine if how many people were spending 40, 50 hours a week just on the language, how many speakers we would have. That does, in this late capitalist society we live in, that is how things work right now. So that's one thing that comes up for me, and that a lot of the communities I've visited and filmed in, they could always use more resources and more capacity for teachers and for learners.
Did it again. Thank you, Eli. Yahlnaaw.
All of those things, yes, definitely, they all resonate. And as you mentioned, Eli, yes, the Mentor Apprentice program through First Peoples Cultural Council, they did get that grant, and it was so exciting and felt significant. But then you look at funding that's going to French and it suddenly feels so insignificant, you know? Speaking to what Marjie said about making space, at various training or workshops or consultation related jobs that I do, that's one of the biggest questions I get asked. You know, what can I, as a settler or a non-Indigenous person, do within things like decolonization or EDI or indigenization or whatever it's going to be? And at a baseline, I always say make space. Make space for so-called but oppressed ways of knowing and being to resurface and grow in their rightful spaces. And this speaks to what I spoke to earlier about different agendas for different people and different things. So for example, something that needs to be on the settler agenda for things like decolonization and indigenization needs to be the making space for things to happen. This goes into realms such as money, such as funding. Or we can even speak on a decolonization perspective and making space for the renaming of buildings or signs or cities to happen. Colonization is land-based, and therefore decolonization also needs to be land-based. We look at the original definition, one of the original definitions of colonization, you know, those dictionaries that all of our parents or grandparents or ourselves had that were like this big and they sat on the living room floor. If you look into that, it says that colonization is the planting of a plant on a plot of land in which it is not native to or cannot sustain itself. Colonization started with land, so decolonization needs to hold land as central. So making space for the renaming of buildings or signs or cities is a decolonization process. It's a surface level decolonization process, but a level nonetheless. This also goes into land acknowledgements, a surface level of decolonization, but part of it nonetheless. Whereas on the agenda for Indigenous peoples working to reclaim and revive their languages, to use that space in such a way that it isn't restricted to only specific peoples, but we're open to sharing and collaborating. In my master's thesis that I had done, a huge component of it was not just doing it, but ensuring that all of the pieces that I used were adaptable so that other nations and other people could use the structures that I had outlined, what I had done, the Skidegate Haida language revitalization processes and tools through storytelling, but have those in a way so that they're adaptable and shareable, so other second language learners can see what I've done, take the pieces I put together, adapt them for their own ways of knowing and being able to engage in those language revitalization processes themselves with different languages in different spaces in different places with different funding and all of those pieces. And that's something that I have really been thinking about lately. So Hawa, for that question, thank you.
Well, thank you all for your answers. Is there any more comments that anyone would like to make before we close?
I would just like to say Hawa again to all of you in this space and to send my love to all of you. I was nervous about coming into this in the state that I've been feeling in the last week and a half, but I feel very whole and grateful and happy that I was able to do it and share that story, and knowing that my Nanai's here and wearing her favorite sparkly cardigan with her favorite earrings and her little locket necklace. So I know she's here cheering me on, listening, waiting, watching, being proud, making sure I'm doing the right things at the right time in the right places with the right people. And you all were the right people for me to come back into these sharing spaces today. So how for that.
Masi Cho, Yahlnaaw, thank you so much for sharing tonight. Any more comments?
It was really lovely to share this space, to meet some new incredible people. Yeah, and to feel so so held within this conversation and opportunity to share. I've learned a lot. I feel it's always a good opportunity to also, when I'm sharing, be reminded of things I need to remember as well. Something I was thinking about tonight. Yeah, this has been really lovely. Thank you. Hi, Kinanaskomatana.
Well, thank you to everyone for tonight. Thank you for all your sharing, your knowledge, your continued everything. I'm sorry, I'm just so overwhelmed with everything. But thank you all so much for sharing your stories, your experiences. And have a good evening. Thank you.